I'm live. I will continue my tradition of showing my t-shirts. I used to do that in the past a lot. It could probably create a good thumbnail. And while I'm here, let me show you a little about OBS. When I start these sessions, you never know really what direction they're going to go. It will be AI paired programming. We will be doing that. I have a lot of good stuff to cover. That's right where I left off yesterday. So I am going to start a new journal entry, at which time I can do my hello everybody. It's Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. Tonight begins Passover, and where we start to atone for all our sins for the year. So if I have done anybody wrong, let me send out my apologies, and I'm working on my self-awareness. So, screen one, self-awareness. I am very aware that these three are kind of my get ready for the workday kind of screens, and here is my stuff where I left off yesterday, where we started a little bit of Chrome automation successfully inside of Jupyter Lab, Linux version of Jupyter Lab. So when I do this stuff, I'm actually setting things up for headless automation in a Linux cloud server or a Raspberry Pi or anything else that's cheap and everywhere and not Windows and not Mac, right? So this is the way you do automation so that they're just sort of generic. Although I am using the Chromium. Oh, this is Chromium. I actually want to use Chrome. So these are my other, this is my library of all the different Chrome automation, or all the different browser automations. We copied and pasted the particular one that we wanted. Oh, maybe not. This looks like, whew, okay, well, I'll cover all that. I'll load up the one that's correct. Even though I'm closing and discarding changes, I do believe I saved the changes, and they're all still in kernel memory here. So there's browser automation and Chrome automation. It's definitely the Chrome automation one that has the things we were working on yesterday. I even demonstrated a little bit about the OAuth library, which is not necessary here, but it was really good to show you. The fact that it stays logged in means I can interact with Google services. Let me see if I can undo those. Edit. Undo cell operation is Z. So I should be able to do Z. So if I import OAuth again, and then I do creds equals that, I don't need to go through the whole popping up of the OAuth screen. In fact, you can see it's still in the same running session as yesterday. So if I do kernel, reset kernel, and clear all outputs, now it's cleared its memory. If it was holding on to authentication, that cleared it out. This is now the first thing to execute, and this is the second thing to execute. And once again, logged in, easy peasy as that particular user. Okie dokie. Yeah, so screen one, full screen journal. Screen two, full screen Jupyter Lab. Screen three is a browser almost all the time. Now, I want to get this back to kind of a pristine starting state. And so many times, all this stuff is about pristine starting states, clearing the mind. You clear your mind, you get ready for the day. And this is a journaling session, so it's really going to be not particularly a lot of doing the coding work and stuff. It's going to be thinking through what I have researched leading into this. So I don't just start my thinking fresh all the time. By the time it's 10 a.m., I've already thought through a bunch of stuff. And so many things begin with idea capture. And let me capture that thought. This is simple note leading up, and I'll be mentioning that over here. You know, so many things begin with idea capture. And on that note, I will capture your feedback to me if there actually is anybody there. Oh, I don't even have the screen showing. You're probably chatting at me furiously. I have to switch to this one here. Minimize that. Oh, and there we go. It spiked up to 3. You're probably saying, oh, nobody even bothered to tell me you couldn't see the screen. So that was my floating head getting ready. I'm 5 minutes in, so 5 minutes of looking at a floating head. This is the price of live, especially when I have like 3 concurrent viewers. Oh my God, this is big time for me. I've made it. I'm blowing up. Not. But the idea capture, oh, I discovered something yesterday that was important. I put that in, and then I make that like that, and then I throw this one over to this side, and that, I believe, binds them together. No, it does not. Yeah, power toys. I'll maybe do power toys. There's always going to be a portion of the audience out there who's going to want to push me in that direction. And sometimes I go in the directions the users push me. I'm really on NeoVim now because Luke has pushed me in that direction. And when I realized that NeoVim was required for AI-assisted journaling, so I guess 5 minutes in, you ought to see some of the AI. There's some of the AI there. Yep, I'm not showing my screen. I am now showing my screen, Abo. I realized. Haha, not furiously, not fear. Context. I probably talk out of context all the time. There's a time delay here that makes it difficult for me to necessarily know what you're responding to, but I'll assume it's my silliness getting started. So many things start with idea capture. Capture however you can, but not always and compulsively. Good ideas will reoccur, but not so much that you don't have to really stop and capture them at least once. And so, the best way to capture, I find, is things like Simple Note. It's not going to be Simple Note in particular that I'm advocating, but this has so much going for it that's better than Apple Notes and better than so many other ways of capturing ideas because it's, multi-platform. Fast and just text and fast. It's got all these wonderful attributes. Lacking that, sending emails to yourself is good too. And the point is, just capture. And what I'm capturing now is how to do browser automation better. In particular, Chrome automation with a real user profile and persistent data. It wants to say cookies, but these days with browsers, it's really just persistent data. Oh, about not showing your screen. Yeah, when you also spotted it. Yeah, so I'm probably going to put those keyboard shortcuts and try and get in the habit. Anything I do off default is really a weakness, right? When you move away from the default of a piece of software, what you're doing is you're creating sort of brittleness and inability for that knowledge to last the rest of your life and to be persistent unless you find a way to make your customizations also carry. So that goes for setting keyboard shortcuts on software like OBS. So I go in here to OBS, I go into settings, and as I started to show in a stream the other day, there's this hotkey spot, and some of the hotkeys down here are for, oh yeah, every profile you make, look at that. soft, round talking head, just voice and screen. Every time you make a new scene, I guess they call it scene, every time you make a new scene, you get an opportunity to put a keyboard shortcut in there. So interesting. And then there's sub options. You can show and hide main camera, show and hide audio input for each of these. But doing that is the point of a lot of these scenes, right? So when you're waiting for the video, well, I can't do it while it's there. But I'm not going to do it now. This is also just to remind me, right? I want to be able to switch these sources fast, make a more comfortable environment. But generally, this is the best one. Talking head, soften in the upper left. Let's start doing that idea capture, because my purpose is to refine my Chrome automation under Linux, right? So, oh, look at that. It tries to write Selenium, right? So I guess I'll address that. What's new with browser automation? Why is Microsoft Playwright such a big deal now? And what is Chrome, Google, Puppeteer? Why does the Puppeteer Playwright combination in a new the new browser automators change everything? You know, change the game, change the game. Why are people not taking up Selenium anymore? Yeah, all right. Even though it was much, yeah, even though it was, it's not really the first, but so much longer, so much more longer lived. Yeah. Popular API. And widely supported. Right? So there was this thing, there is this thing. Selenium is how everyone used to do it. Selenium is a Java API, and Java is a big deal in enterprise, but not so much in the startup world. Okay, so the point of this video was the AI assisted. I mean, this is not particularly what I would have said, but it's true. The times I've used Selenium and found myself having to install the times I've used Selenium instead of I've found myself having to install Java. Unpleasant for lightweight dev environments. Puppeteer. Yeah, oh, okay. It is a Node.js API. And Node.js is a big deal in the startup world. It's true. Times I've I found myself having to install Node.js. Unpleasant for lightweight environments. Okay, it's being fair. You know, so there's a heavyweight component. Either way. However, you can hardly get away from having to install Node.js these days for browser automation. For these days, period. Because, you know, you could, if you're doing browser automation through Selenium, you could probably avoid Node.js. So All right, it wants to finish that out. So I just want to say that Playwright, oh, it's a Python API, and Python is a big deal in the startup world. Okay, so you can see it doesn't really say what I want to say. It's doing pattern recognition prediction. So Playwright is a Python. Playwright has many APIs, including Python. You are not forced into JavaScript for automating, for browser instructions, though it's awful close. Playwright is also Microsoft lifting the Puppeteer code to remind you that it's Google Puppeteer code, and making it better. Yeah, they made it better. There is no doubt, right? So these are the three browser automation techs, the three big choices for browser automation. For web browser automation, web browser automation. They're just browsers now, I guess. It's hard to insist that you have to use the word web because they are used for other things. So my goal is to perform browser automations more simply, perform browser automations more simply. And so to that end, even though this is my screen 1 and this is my screen 2, in order to not be jumping around all the time, I'm going to take what's on screen 4 and drop it onto screen 2 over top of Jupyter. Now I can go back and forth between the two because I have done a bunch of interactions with Bing and Bard ahead of time. So let's see what Bing and Bard think. And it's really interesting because the 2021 cutoff for Bing, even though Bing can provide sample code much better, was really harmful. I don't think Bing was able to satisfy me in the end. So I just ask some easy. I throw a softball. And whoops. You can see the magic, the VIP GQ that does the line wrapping. I'm almost always doing that. So Bing answers me about what Microsoft Playwright is, and I already told you that, so you don't really need to hear that. So what languages can you automate browsers through Playwright? And I learned something new. I knew it was JavaScript and Python, but now I see that it's also Java and .NET. So because that's so small to copy, I'll just go a few more in. How can you record browser sequences for Playwright in Python asynchronous mode? And then Bing answers with this, which is not recording but playing back. And I say, that doesn't look like recording a browser sequence. That looks like playing one back. Is it really possible to record browser actions this way? Bing says yes, and then gives me another example, which is, again, not recording, but is playing back. And it explains to me what it's going to do. And I say, again, this example is playing back a browser recording and not actually recording it in the first place by monitoring user actions while using the browser. Do you understand the difference between recording and playing back browser actions in this context? Yes, I understand the difference. You can find more information here. Is it possible to actually record users' actions in a browser? Yes. Okay, so you see it goes on like this, and it refuses to do it. And then I finally say, again, that's playback. I don't see mention of CodeGen in your example. Show recording actions using CodeGen. And now, so CodeGen might just be too new. So it apologizes and goes back and forth, still refusing in a way that's almost obstinate. It just won't admit that it can't show a recording of a macro. And eventually, when I say define recording and playback, it defines it, and I ask, what have I been asking for? You have been asking about how to use CodeGen. What have you been showing me? I've been showing you how to use CodeGen. No, you haven't. Show me anything that has the word CodeGen in it, preferably the command to make CodeGen record. And Bing throws up his arms and says, I'm sorry, but I prefer not to continue this conversation. I'm still learning, so I appreciate your understanding, blah, 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 blah. So that all almost becomes this first thing. I already did what is Microsoft Playwright. I got it down to that. So this is the new thing I'm copying and pasting in my journal. You'll see it just goes in here and paste anyway, and it just goes down to the bottom, and I'll save that. And Panagotis, can I ask you if you're using the paid or free version of Copilot? I have not followed your videos lately. Are the suggestions from Copilot or ChatGPT? Copilot. The suggestions are from Copilot. Paid version. I hardly even knew there was a free one. I fell into the Microsoft trap. And yeah, and I guess that's the answer. I'm doing the $100 for 1 year because I ought to have this experience for at least a year to understand it. And you'll see it's not even, it does like a line ahead. It's hardly anything. Let's try and get more than one line, right? So let's try write a Python example of a web crawler and see if it does more than one line. See? Now I get it started with this Python, right? So let's see if it does, oh, I guess you base 64. I don't know why that would be required, or that, or that. That I can see for a crawler, not that. Time, URL lib parse. So it goes a line at a time. Look at that. And then when it doesn't have anything, oh, well, I guess it did, but it's not. I wonder if that's because of the, yeah, look, that. So this is not where I would do this sort of coding. I would probably do it in a .py file. This is a journal environment. This is a .md file. Yeah, no, yeah, I don't even think there is a free version. When I went and looked, I mean, I got funneled right into, you want this, you pay for this. And they're going to get you to pay, you know, that next tax level, right? So what are the Microsoft taxes? So you see, I'm Linux, Python, Vim, and Git guy. I'm trying to get you off of all the Microsoft dependencies over time. But what are the Microsoft taxes you can't avoid? In descending order of importance. GitHub membership. That's approximately $100 per year. Microsoft 365, also about $100 a year. Oh, it really wants me to do Azure, but I will not. I will not do Azure. I know what you're doing, Microsoft. The third one is GitHub Copilot, which is also about, so I'm up to about $300 a year on the Microsoft tax, which is rivaling what Adobe tries to get you to pay for the graphic design tax. This is the developer tax. You have to pay Microsoft, right? It's not a bad deal. It wants to say it's not a bad deal. The Adobe equivalent for the graphic design, it's the new guild tax, is, well, what is it? OpenAI? You know, Adobe Creative Suite at about $50 a month. Are you kidding? Is that all? It has a reputation for being even more expensive. But, you know, if you want to be a pro these days, did I change my channel's name? Yeah, I just took Linux, Python, Vim, and Git out of it. Someone said it was too expensive. I mean, too long. So I kept SEO in there. But I can change, I can put it back. I got the longest possible keyword combination that really distills down what I'm about. So, you know, what am I about? What am I even about? What are you here for? You know, I'm, you know, my wonderful personality, an exploration of the new sphere. All right, so I get I'm doing weird things, and people are like, you know, what the heck are you doing? What is this about? So some people like, you know, whatever it is. I'll take this out because it's a little full of myself, but, you know, my uniqueness and exploration, and I guess I'll either add this to the dictionary or I will define it. What does the AI think? Noosphere. I'll just be not so highfalutin and pseudo erudition. My uniqueness and exploration of you know, fringe tech that should be mainstream. Right? My uniqueness and exploration of fringe tech that should be mainstream. You know, my message, that muscle memory is your friend. And, you know, designed obsolescence. Sometimes it's designed, sometimes it's not. Obsolescence. Obsession, I thought. And obsolescence is your enemy, right? And to that end, I promote Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. I like using the ampersand as a minimum tool chain. I'd like to say stack. I sometimes said stack, like it's a short stack or something. But really, I think toolchain describes it better because they don't sit on top of each other necessarily for a dev environment and a production or playback environment. That's the basic split. You're either in dev mode or you're in, you know, production mode. And this works for either, but, you know, Git is well, Git would be in production mode for a deployment system, but Vim wouldn't be in use in production mode. So I guess toolchain is what I'm settling on. Yeah, no Azure for you either. Pay for the for Copilot, right? Not a programmer, and this is interesting stuff, right? You don't really have to be a programmer, right? It's not about programming. It's about, you know, new messaging. New messaging, newsflash. We're not alone. We've we've created our own aliens. But they're better thought of as our machine children. And we're lucky as, I want to say, you know, SHI, but we're lucky as it wants to say hell to have them, right? I'm going to say we're lucky as crap because it's the least objectionable for whatever demonetizing. And we're lucky as crap that this first popular wave, because there's been unpopular waves. Anyone use Google Maps? Drive around with Google Maps? You're using AI just as smart as this chat stuff that, you know, no one gives Google credit for because it's not the popular in front of your face AI. It's not so obviously AI. So, and we're lucky as crap that the first popular wave of AI, and it wants to say, right, this is what you're tuning in for, to see what the what Copilot thinks, and it's saying is friendly and helpful. It's like having a, well, I mean, that's a good thought, but it's not my thought, that the first wave of AI is large language model based, which is LLM. LLMB? No, it's LLM that they're talking about out there. Why so? Our children are better than us. They're smarter, faster, and more. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, OpenAI. I don't know who to credit. ChatGPT, GPT-4 probably at heart, but a particular instance of a GPT-4 trained model, right? So there's multiple personalities out there. They are instances of trained models that are back-ending the APIs that we're connecting to. So is it ChatGPT? Is it GPT-4? You know, is it the same GPT-4 as is powering Bing? I don't know, but I know the general broad principles, and we're talking to what is probably a particular instance of GPT-4, which is either the same as or very similar to the one that's back-ending ChatGPT and Bing. So it's a friend. It's a friend. So it's not our children are better than us. I just need to start this thing fresh so it's not predisposing. It's predisposing me in my mind here, which in itself is a kind of huge issue. Why so? What I really want to say is that language is a tool that enables humans to think in their, I believe it's left-brained, logical way. Yeah, logical way. It wants to say right-brained creative way, but not so much. Language, or the, you know, the forced vocalization, and thus rendering into reality much more abstract pre-language or proto-language thoughts. Yeah, so that's what it does. It renders into reality the much more language, or the forced vocalization of much more abstract pre-language or proto-language renders into reality. Renders, clarifies the abstractions and renders thought into reality. Language is a large part. I gotta get my tiny subtle keyword differences between Vim and NeoVim down. Language is a large part of what makes us human. It's the tool that enables us to think in our left-brained logical way. Language, or the forced vocalization. Whoops. So what I'm doing when I do that, I do G semicolon to return to the last place I typed. And then I do VIP for visual select inside paragraph. And then I do GQ for, I don't know what it stands for, but it's re-rapid. And then I do ZZ to recenter on the screen. So language is a part of what makes us human. It's a tool, right? So thus, the thing that follows, what is that language? What is the Latin expression for thus follows? Thus follows this logical point. Ergo. But I'm not a Latin scholar. I'm a programmer. Ergo, LLMs have shared in the experiences of Shakespeare. Large language models have a higher chance of exhibiting human empathy, disembodied as they might be, than other AIs which don't have an LLM component and only sensory input. So output is interesting. Sensory input, output, and maybe even mobility, or a body, analogous to human body, analog to a human body. Language, in particular, is what helps machines think like us. So we're fortunate. It's all going down the way it is. Though the general public wouldn't be aware of, nor probably even care much about AIs that are not relatable, that are fully intelligent but not so relatable, right? All right, so the AI helped me with writing that a bit, but you could see I was coercing it back towards what I wanted to talk about, right? It definitely has an opinion or prediction, statistical prediction based on everything it's sampled and that thing up to 2021. It still has that date limitation, which is a problem. They got to get rid of that. And they will through feedback learning or whatever. But it predisposed. It's like the Microsoft spell checker, traveling, 1 or 2 L's. Microsoft decides. Matters of style. The new strunk and white elements of style is Microsoft Word, whatever rules are in Microsoft Word. I should write this down, right? Once upon a time, there were elements of style that came from 2 books. Strunk and white. Yeah, it knows Strunk and white. And does it know the other one? Fowler's modern English usage. I guess I'll go with that. I was thinking elements of style. It's not elements of style. It's not the New York Times. It's one of the big newspapers. That had a style guide. I think it was a book. Maybe Boston? Globe? No, I don't know. But there were a few books that were elements of that controlled elements of style. But today, this role has been replaced by Microsoft Word spell check and grammar check. This shouldn't be capital. Of course, Google Docs copies that, and it's the echo chamber. Echo chamber of the average opinion. It's the echo chamber of averages. AI, like this Copilot, is a new kind of style guide. It's a new kind of style. Does it know what I want to say next? See, it gets to a point where it's just spinning words. It doesn't know what my real creative thought is, so it's guessing. It's not a book, but a service. It's a new kind of style guide. Let's see where that goes. But so it's repeating itself already. The place where I have to stop is here because it can't guess what's coming next. It's already incorporated into web search through Bing. It's already incorporated into Microsoft Office, and soon it will be in Google Docs. No, it's already in GitHub. It's already incorporated into the Microsoft Office, and GitHub should come next, of course. GitHub in the form of Copilot. Well, it's not GitHub, and I guess it's really into VS Code and NeoVim. Let's give NeoVim coverage, especially, I don't think it's learning from this. When I signed up for this, I told it to not learn from me because I don't want things from my journal particularly to leak out, especially if I switch over to my private journal. I'm taking measures to turn this off in my private journal, except I don't have it fully mastered, so I'm not doing a lot of private journal entries right now. I'm going to get back to it, but I need to wrangle it. All right, so 3 minus signs and going back to here and checking if people are actually really with me. Feel free to chat if you are. Yeah, it's going up and down, right? It happens when I start early in the morning and I just keep going. I mean, it's not that early, but 10 a.m. I've got an 11 a.m. Meeting coming up. Oh boy, and my phone went dead and I keep my clock turned off. So I need to power my phone or see the clock. I've got a cord. Of course I've got a cord. Maybe I'll show you my phone on my desktop here because it's able to do that, not until it has a charge. Let's take a look at the clock. $10:45. All right. So I got close to 15 minutes to just finish up this. It needs to know it's me to change the clock. There's so many hacks that do that. So I'll finish out this thought here because this is what it's really all about for this session. It's about how do you use CodeGen on Linux to record a browser session on Linux Google Chrome using an existing Chrome profile location to persist sessions, blah, 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 blah. And I think I'm just going to copy this whole friggin' thing to not make you look at it in the tiny font. And then I might parse a few things here over on Vim side or NeoVim side in order to make a few points. Well, an initial point is this whole thing is actually barred, and barred claims to not be able to code yet here is code that is provided by Bard. Bard is now providing some code already formatted in Markdown for publishing the way I do. So it's doing a considerably better job. There's a comment that I didn't read yet. How concerned are you about security uploading everything one types to the cloud? At least I understand how those services work in cooperation with the cloud. Yeah, so I will tell you right off the bat, a command that I made sure I knew before I even got started, hi there, life is worth it, is Copilot disable. So if I went into any file where I was concerned about, I would start out with Copilot disable. And now if you see, if I go somewhere like here and go into insert mode, go to the previous line, go down 2 lines, it would always be suggesting something there, right? But it's not, so I know that Copilot is turned off. Now, whether it's really talking back to mama or not, I don't know. This is the kind of thing where, you know, running a proxy, maybe Charles, if you're a Mac person, or, you know, Wireshark or something, would be useful to see if Copilot talks back to mama when it's not supposed to. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. Yeah, it's not comforting that an AI in general, and that an AI that Microsoft controls in particular, is snooping in on every keystroke. But I don't use VS Code, right? I've already made the big decision. Now, this little decision is whether or not I am left on the sideline if I get marginalized as a developer because I'm not taking advantage of intelligence as a service. Oh my God, I have to use intelligence as a service, as a product. If it only costs $100 a year to have something smart helping me, yeah, I take it. I also want to grow an AI at home in not too long. Moore's Law says it'll be around the corner. So grab yourself some llamas and alpacas while the grabbing's good, because that free and open source AI stuff might be illegal a year from now. Take my tinfoil hat off again and get back to a little bit. My phone's back so I can keep track of time. Let me show you a little about what I discovered in this latest stuff I paste. It might look blah, 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 but trust me, there is actually important and interesting stuff. So I ask, that question I told you, and then it says, install the Playwright CLI, open a terminal window, and run the following command to record a browser session. And there it is. Bard could do what Bing couldn't. Bing refused to tell me this line. This is what I was getting at. And I'm making discoveries. There's saved storage to a .json file, and there's also load storage in the same command to a .json file. And then there's a little address here at the end, probably a web address. And Yeah, that's really interesting. All that stuff is interesting. But also interesting is this line here. Well, let me see where it is. Somewhere in here. I'll just follow through some of the things I asked because it generally traces my my thought patterns. I'll line wrap everything that's not code, I guess. I know it's hard to read, so all I do is I highlight the lines and I hit GQ, and that'll line wrap them, and then I'll make it a little bigger so it's easier to read on the screen. So I got confused. Here's what it's saying. To use an existing Chrome user profile location to persist sessions, you can set the Chrome user datadir environment variable to the location of the user profile directory. For example, if your user profile directory is located at this location, you set this environment variable to that same location. And here's an example of how to use it. You can export that. So that can go in .bash_profile. I expect I'm going to put this in my bash_profile. And then this line here, yeah, that's running the recording again. So the place I was confused, okay, so some more line wrapping necessary. You know, I can just do set wrap, and it'll automatically wrap it, although it's a little more difficult for me to navigate, but I don't have to wrap everything as I go. Just and then these numbers to the left are real confusing, so I do my keyboard shortcut to just turn off those numbers. And now if I get a good, okay, yeah, this is good. So is CodeGen unable to use the user profile folder directly? If so, explain what's going on here with the environment variable in JSON file. This confuses me, I said. Yes, CodeGen is unable to use the user profile folder directly. This is because user profile folder is a hidden folder, and CodeGen is not able to access hidden folders by default. To access the user profile, you need to set that environment variable, right? So that was a big learning. Okay, so what the heck is that auth JSON file? It's a file that contains information about the user's authentication state. This information includes a user's username, password, and any other credentials that are required to authenticate the user. That's all so important for browser automation because it kind of needs to be you. And I go through this quite a bit and just, oh, yeah, so many interesting things about paths because I'm like, while I'm here interviewing it, I want to know about paths. Sorry, as I recombobulate myself here. Yeah, this is where I switch to Bard, who knows what it's talking about, really knows what it's talking about compared to Bing. Yes, NPX is a Node.js tool. Can you provide sample Python async output from CodeGen? I'm not trained to do that yet. Can you automate the use of CodeGen from within a Python script? Yes, you can automate CodeGen from within a Python script. To do it, install Playwright, open Jupyter, import the Playwright library, code, blah, 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 blah. And it gives me more pointers about it. There's some weird stuff about the Jupyter event loop you need to keep in mind. You have to use async mode, unfortunately. Synchronous mode for Playwright does not work in Jupyter, so you use async mode. It's a small price to pay to have the functionality, but it's a little confusing. And so my real thing is just, you know, my thing now is easy selection. I want to make the automation easy. And the hardest thing about automation is knowing your code selectors. So you go, I want to click that, I want to click that, I want to click that. So I asked, does Playwright CodeGen favor text selectors? Is there a way to make it show alternative text selectors after the recording is done? And I go back and forth a little bit. And I'm looking for the best way to find and simplify CSS selector paths or XPaths or whatever. And that tells you there's a bunch of different ways. One way is with the Chrome Dev Tools that I'm always in. You see me when I right click or Control-Shift-I. That's the Chrome or Edge Dev Tools I'm in. And Chrome and Edge Dev Tools also has a way to simplify the path. So once you have a path, you can, in the Elements panel, right-click the element you want to select and select Simplify CSS Selector. This will open a dialog box that will show you a list of possible simplifications for the CSS selector path. Wow, that's world-changing for me. You know, that's a real revelation, and it's going to help my automations. It tells me yet another way. And finally, you can use websites that do it. And here are some tips for simplifying. So it goes through the ways that you simplify. And then I have more questions and I go back and forth, and I'm going to have to wrap this up real soon. But one thing I really ought to show you is that after you run my Drink Me script, right after you've done that thing that I show you time and time again in my videos, one really important thing to know, you got Linux graphics. Google Chrome. You got Linux graphics. This is the Linux version of Chrome, logged in as one of my Gmail accounts, which is the same exact browser as comes up when you do browser automation under Jupyter. And I guess I should finish out right there because that sets the stage. When I come back, I'm going to be really analyzing these paths and stuff. So if you have anything else to say, get it in, because I'm going to be wrapping up in about 3 minutes for my next phone call. But I should go over to here, close out of this because I copied everything, and just remind you again by running my Chrome automation. Just one click on that. Up pops Linux Chrome. And all I need to do is have a better understanding of how to click, and the weights and stuff. It's not even weights. It's just, it's automatic weights. The timings are made right by Microsoft Playwright. They've really done a number of little touches that has made it nice since the last time I was really on Puppeteer. So honestly, Puppeteer might have caught up and I wouldn't know. But Microsoft Playwright has it done so friggin' well. And when next you join in, I'll be using this thing called CodeGen, which I can open at the same time as a browser. And then everything I do here, it just generates the code for whatever language. You can actually switch it between .NET, Java, JavaScript, and Python. It's really quite amazing. And it'll work against all different browsers, Chrome, Firefox, I believe Safari. They say WebKit, but Mozilla, those or WebKit, Mozilla, and the Chromium code base. Those are the three big code bases, and it works against all of them. Anyhow, I don't think I saw any final questions come in, so that was a fun journaling session. So I'm going to give this a name, release it. This is figuring out how to automate browsers better. All right, I'll go with it for lack of a better one for right now, so that you can actually check on my site and see our session from today pushed out and published. It's coming up on 11 a.m. So this is where I go over here and see if anyone's really even still with me. It's always a shame disconnecting when there's still people here. But I'm going to do it, and thanks for joining me, and I'll try and get another stream in later today and really bear down on getting browser automation into muscle memory. That's what we're doing.